In Ukraine's Russian-speaking East, Putin's war is tearing families apart. I'm all scratched and battered. Ukrainian woman loses brother and home to Russian rocket. Bakhmut, Ukraine CNN. The warm spring air is coming to eastern Ukraine. The roads are lined with red tulips, and people are reopening their summer kitchens. Small buildings outside the traditional homes used to isolate and heat and smells of cooking in the hotter months. It was in her elderly mother's wood frame summer kitchen that Ludmila, 69, was chatting to her brother Viktor, 72, who went by Bitya in the eastern city of Lysychansk last week. Despite near constant bombardment from Russian troops just a few kilometers away, they had stayed in their family home since the invasion of Ukraine in late February. My brother and I were talking, said Ludmila, who asked CNN to use only her first name out of privacy concerns. All at once, grass started falling down one by one. The windows are blown from their frames. Everything was cracking. She recalled the initial shock and confusion. We are standing there, my brothers, and making the sign of the cross, and I'm shouting. I turned away from him to look at the house, and then another explosion went off, and I was trapped under the rubble. Ludmila was momentarily blinded. Blood poured from her face and from lacerations on her hands and feet. But she was alive. She felt the touch of a neighbor who felled her to safety to her basement. Her 96-year-old mother mercifully was unscratched. I asked how's my brother, how's Bitya, and the neighbor hides his eyes and says, everything is fine. I said to him, Vova, I don't believe it. If it were okay, he would have come seen us. He said everything is okay sit down and goes out. And his wife is sitting next to me and said, Luda, he doesn't know how to tell you. Vitya is dead. That's it. And my brother will be 73 years old on May 6th, and that was it. A bloody gurney lies in the hallway of the hospital in Bakhmut. Death and loss are far from the only traumas in this Russian-speaking region. For many, the war has upended any remaining fellowship with Russia, according to a survey last year by the Kiev International Institute of Sociology. 43% of Ukrainians report having relatives in Russia. Even in the Russian-speaking East, that camaraderie had already been waning since Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea and support for separatist movement. With this war, a history of pain is brought to the fore of millions deaths from famine and forces Soviet collectivization and attempt over decades to wipe off Ukrainian culture and Ukrainian language. It's hard to relate to someone if they believe Russian President Vladimir Putin's propaganda that the military is conducting a small and targeted operation that avoided civilian casualties. It's perhaps even more difficult to relate if they don't believe your neighbors, brothers, and friends are being killed. Ludmila's son, as well as her sister and her sister's family, all live in Russia. My granddaughter had a fight with My own sister's granddaughter, Ludmila explained. She said, "What are you making up? We are shooting at yourself, and you were lying." Adding that a lot of people in Russia don't believe that what's really happening in her country. This is Putin's politics. Zombification, Ludmila said. Whether Russia can conquer all of the Donbass, the eastern Ukrainian regions of Donetsk and Luhansk is an unanswered question after each military's underwhelming performance in the war's opening months. A destroyed railway bridge between Slavyansk and Liman, where Russian forces are advancing. A devastation Russia will wreak in the attempt is certain, however. Ukrainian officials said the attackers will bombard the urban centers with their considerable artillery reserves until there is nothing left for Ukrainians to defend. And it will leave untold Vitya's and Ludmila's deaths, homeless or bereaved. Serhiy Haidai, head of the Luhansk Region Military Administration, said that Russian forces are destroying every settlement on the front lines of the region. Strategically speaking, the only place the Russians can advance in is the areas they have completely destroyed, he told Ukrainian television on Monday. So they completely destroyed the whole of Novotoshkivka. There was no place to hold the defense, and they occupied it. The village of Novotoshkivka in Luhansk fell on April 25, according to Ukrainian accounts. Yet, Haidai does not believe that his enemy will be able to outright capture Lysychansk's low-lying sister city, Severodonetsk, which lies across the Siversky Donets River. They need this victory for sure, but they will not attack Severodonetsk directly. They will try to encircle it, he told CNN, standing on the tree-lined street in comparatively placid Bakhmut. Serhiy Haidai, head of the Luhansk Region Military Administration, is seen in Bakhmut. In 2 months, they have realized that they cannot break through the defense, so they are trying to pass by or cut off from the direction of Pobasna and Lubizhne, and then the Luhansk region will be encircled, and then they won't need to lose the soldiers. They will just shoot all the areas. This tactic is playing out not just on the eastern edge of what remains of Ukraine-controlled Luhansk region. It is also true in the south, along the line of contact that has existed since the 2014-2015 breakaway rump state formed in the north, as Russia pushes south from Izium and west toward Lima. If successful, it would trap a devastating portion of Ukrainian military, the main population center of Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, so far largely unharmed from enemy artillery, would find themselves behind the enemy lines. Every day, back holes carve the more defensive trenches into the fertile field, and the trucks stack concrete and eastern Kianes onto the highways. A major railroad bridge between Slavyansk and Lima was destroyed last week. Whether by Russian strike or Ukrainian sabotage is still unclear. Haidai is convinced that the Ukrainian military can hold the Russians off for another 2 or 3 weeks. The small, agile anti-war and tank weapons given by Western powers are helping, he said. But it is only once the promised heavy artillery actually reaches the front line that the tide can be turned. That, unfortunately, is not here yet, he said, and it could completely change the whole world. Ludmila now spends her days with her mother and a stranger in a small hospital room more than hour to the west in Bakhmut. Her face is pockmarked with wounds from the debris that was blasted into her face. Most of her neighbors left for safer lands long ago, but many others have remained because they don't have the means to leave, because they want to protect their homes, or because they are in denial that this war will be any different than the long smothering battles that have raged in this region since 2014. As long as greed and avarice in humanity are not overcome, these wars will not end, Ludmila said. No matter how much a person has, it is always knotted up.